So as of recently, I've decided to go away from the traditional cinema look. I've started experimenting with cameras that I enjoy shooting with rather than cameras that make things look super cinematic. That means shooting with like the iPhone 16, which is my favorite camera right now. Sometimes I hear from fellow filmmakers and actors and people that love movies that why reinvent the wheel? But I always think that the wheel hasn't really been invented in the first place. Who's to say that the wheel's been invented? That's just me personally talking, and this is kind of like explaining a little bit more of why I've decided to go away from the cinema look. By the way, I've realized that I've never properly introduced myself. That's kind of the opposite of what you should do as a YouTuber, but here I am a couple of years to my YouTube journey and I'm introducing myself. So my name is Alex. My full name is Willie Alexander Henderson Jr. Sometimes I go by Alexanderthetitan, sometimes it's Alexander Henderson, sometimes it's W.A. Henderson. Whatever I decide to call myself that day on YouTube is typically what I do. I should be a little bit more structured, but I'm not. So Alteram is a world that I'm creating that utilizes a style of shooting that I created called the God view perspective. The way that I like to describe the God view perspective is if God decided to zoom in on a timeline of somebody or a group of people and he wanted to see the story, this is the way I think he would perceive the story. Framing could be kind of different, lighting could be different, the acting as a whole could be different, timing can be different. And this is the way that I view God to be perceiving stories. It's a pocket that I love working in because I love doing things a little bit different and I love to try to push creativity as much as possible. The pacing that I like to use in GVP or God view perspective in this particular instance is very, very slow. Every film that I've watched or every project or like piece of art that I have consumed in my life is more impactful if it's very slow. If the art takes me into the deep, deep water and invokes a feeling, it's a project that I'll remember forever. So going into this project, Alteram was extremely important to try to get to that feeling as close as possible, or even if I lose a certain viewer because it's a little bit too slow. That was one of the reasons for me choosing the concept of slowness. Another big reason is because the subject matter has to do with things being done in plain sight. Like, there are a lot of things that are done to us in plain sight that are completely ignored. And that's kind of what I was trying to do with Alteram. I want to literally show you what is being done and have you almost ignore it or have you accept it, because that's what happens in real life, in my opinion, a lot of times. That's the way that I think things happen. I had a lot of fun making this project. I started as a solo filmmaker like I normally do, with that being the base, and then I added people on top of it. Filmmaking as a whole definitely needs to be somewhat collaborative, and it was pretty fun. I had some things happen earlier this year that kind of pushed me to a point where I needed and wanted to work with new people. So this was like my first step into that. I mentioned earlier that I decided to get away from the traditional cinema look. Well, part of that process was me like selling a lot of my older gear and things like that. So when I was selling my tripod, I had like this 75-inch tripod that I wanted to get rid of, so I sold it on OfferUp. And that's when I first met Derek. Derek and I had a cool conversation. We were talking out front of Dave's Hot Chicken for maybe about like 30-45 minutes. And we just realized like, man, our philosophies behind working and building kind of align. Let's work on a project together. So we had a meeting at the gym. We invited Carlos. We hit some weights. We talked about projects. We talked about different ideas on the future of film and all this other stuff, you know, things that filmmakers talk about. And we left with a script. Overall, Alteram is a project that I'm extremely passionate about. During all the table reads, the first points that I had going into the table reads was like, we have to add weight to these characters. We have to add weight to the story. Everything needs to be weighted because it's such an important subject to touch on. And we are having fun making it, and we're going to continue to have fun making it. Overall, I hope you enjoy the project. I'm expecting that you get something out of it, whether it be inspiration, some ideas. Starting as a solo filmmaker as a base, and then adding people on after the fact is kind of the way that I like to work. It's a set that I feel most comfortable in. I can move around kind of quickly. I could shoot according to the schedule I want. It gives me the fluidity and the space to change things if I need to. Filmmaking has to be enjoyable. If I feel like I'm forcing myself to do something, then I feel like I'm being inauthentic, and authenticity is the most important thing. Every time that we've shot Alteram, it feels very, very natural to me. It's just a camera, a couple of actors mic'd up. I don't like to use a slate. I like to just be able to say action and record, and then, you know, throw that in the editing software later on. I'll sync it up later on. One location, I'm actually on set of Alteram. This is a set that we've been using over the last couple of weeks, and it's been such a good process. We're to have 4 projects done: Comet, bath, and shower. We started shooting on a Friday, and on Sunday we already had a rough cut. I typically edit really quick. So on Sunday we had a rough cut, and I was looking at that rough cut and I was like, man, I'm not really feeling this right now. Like, it was all right, but it wasn't that good. So I was gonna put it on one of my other YouTube channels. But as I pushed that edit further and further, I'd say about like 72 hours further into the edit from that point, I was looking at it and I was like, dang, this is pretty good. So I decided at that point, like, okay, this is so good, it's gotta go on my main channel. Even though it's not for everybody, it's gotta go on my main channel because I'm like, I like the project. And while refining it, I was playing with one of the end screens and I was like, what would be cool at this end screen? You know, we had this situation with Alteram having to do with the bathroom and the bath faucet. I was editing on the set of Alteram, so I went in the bathroom, I took a picture of the shower head and I took a picture of the bath faucet, and I put them both on the end screen. I'm like, dang, if we made an unlisted short called bath and we made another unlisted short called shower, how interesting would that be? So that's where we got the idea of like, let's do 2 more films. So I pitched the idea to Derek. Derek pulled a meeting with me, him, and Carlos. We had another meeting at the gym and also had a really good lift. Mind you, this is one interesting thing to note is our first meeting inside the gym, Carlos told me, hey, so I got an idea of doing a sleep paralysis movie. So later on that night, that same night, within like 7 hours of our workout, he sent a script called Alteram, which is now called Comet. A lot of times in the editing process, I like to change the title of the film. So I think editing is one of the most important traits for a director in 2025. Like, I see so many projects derailed when a director can't edit. So I'm like thankful to God really that I know how to edit, and I could edit really good because I put so many hours into it. Overall, I've been having such a fun time with this project. I've been learning a lot about who I am as a filmmaker. I've been adding more tools to the toolbox. Godview perspective is one of those tools that I kind of started developing back when I made the film Roots. I also made a film called The Rafters. The Rafters is completely Godview perspective. Roots is not completely Godview perspective. It's kind of when I decided to start working on that. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me. Thank you for watching behind the scenes. If you want to see anything else, or if you want to talk to me, hit me up on Instagram, Alexanderthetitan. Obviously, my YouTube channel. I normally don't respond on my main channel just because like I could quickly get buried in work while doing that. So I like to respond on my ATT BTS channel. So if you have any questions, you can hit me up here. Please like, subscribe, share it with your filmmaker friends. If there's anything that you want to know for filmmaking, feel free to ask me. I try to help as much as possible. I know I don't do the behind the scenes videos too often, but I am definitely here to help. One piece of advice that I'll give you, because everyone always asks me, what camera should I get? What editing software should I use? Should it be Premiere? Should it be Final Cut? DaVinci Resolve? Use DaVinci Resolve. What type of script writing software should I use? What I'd like to say is start with what you have. Don't go out and buy the newest, fanciest gear. Just remember that all of these companies are extremely good at marketing. They have billions of dollars put into marketing and research, and they know how to get your dollar. You can look back 10 years ago and see like a Canon 5D Mark III or Mark IV, and a lot of those cameras, they still stand up with the cameras of today. So you want to get a nice camera, but more than anything, the best tool that you have is right here. What you really need is confidence, know-how, the skill, and the passion. More importantly than anything is the authenticity. You need to be authentic.